Hello, hello. Welcome to another edition or episode of Coffee and Code Platoon. I'm your host, Greg Drobny, the Student Recruitment Outreach Manager for Code Platoon. Joined with me, as always, is Kayla Elkin, doing all things hard, technical, and amazing. Appreciate you joining me, and welcome to everybody who might be either joining us right now or also seeing this at a later date. We're going to jump right into things. We're going to be answering some questions here about what's going on at Code Platoon, what you can learn at Code Platoon, what Code Platoon is all about. Any number of questions. The whole premise of this is to be as informal as possible and to just answer whatever questions are on people's minds. We don't have a specific agenda. We're here to answer the questions that you have as an audience. So if you're just now joining us, don't hesitate to either put your questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask whatever questions you came here to ask, or you can sit back and lurk. You can sit back and hang out, and the questions you have may very well be answered in due time anyway. So it is totally up to you, totally casual. But thank you for joining us. Kayla, do we have any questions to kick us off? Any basic, straightforward questions?
Yeah. Let's start with, we just recently announced an AI integration in the program. So can you tell me how the AI is integrated in the Code Platoon programs at this point?
Absolutely. Great place to start, because it's a growing and more common question every day. Variations of this question are, what is the situation with AI in the world of software engineering? Is AI taking jobs away from people? Where does AI fall into this mix? And I think that the best place to start with any question related to AI is to pull back a bit and look at the concept of AI as just another brand new advancement in the world of technology. Advancements of the kind that have been happening for a generation or more. But the reason I bring this up in this context is because this is why coding boot camps in general excel, and this is why they became a thing to begin with. We can adapt to the changes in the industry much faster than a university program. That's what sets a coding boot camp apart. We do not have to spend multiple years reviewing different curriculum in order to advance our curriculum along with the new technology. We can incorporate these things very quickly. That is exactly what we've done with AI and AI tools. We've managed to incorporate them rather quickly over the last year, to the level that we're continually changing and continually keeping up to speed with what is going on. These are impactful changes, no question about it. They're huge changes. We want to change right along with them. We're not going to be that organization who sits, feet in the mud and says, no, this is how we've done it forever, and so we're going to keep doing it. We're going to adapt with these changes. And as a result, we're working on incorporating these tools. For example, natural language processing and language models in general, we're already incorporating these into our curriculum. And for anybody who watches this, I encourage you to go back and look at our last couple of graduation videos. It's one of the greatest places to start for finding out what you're going to do at Code Platoon. So if you type into YouTube right now, if you type in Code Platoon Whiskey graduation, Whiskey was our most recent graduation, and that is our students debuting their final project. And within those descriptions and explanations, what you will see are the incorporation of large language models and how you incorporate those tools into software engineering. The bottom line is that these tools are not taking away the fundamental skills of a software engineer. They all are altering how those tools are implemented. But concepts like prompt engineering is becoming more and more in demand, not less. So when we're incorporating, some of, and I'm going to read some of this to you just because some of it is advancing so fast that, not being a software engineer myself, I'm a little, I'm catching up to this as well. But AI Python tools like PyTorch, NumPy, Pandas, Jupyter Notebooks, these are all being integrated into our curriculum, and students are training their own AI and integrating it into their full stack personal projects. You see it in some of the team projects. Again, these are concepts and tools that we are continually looking at and updating, because the reality is, if you're not staying up to speed with it, you're going to be, you're increasingly, it's being seen that you're being left behind in this industry if you're not incorporating what these are, how they work, how they can maximize work. And that's a really key component there too. Is a lot of cases it's making work more efficient. It's not taking jobs away per se. It's making a lot of jobs more efficient than they previously were. So that's kind of a brief overview of our approach. Anybody out there have any questions related to that? Again, some of the more detailed aspects of this curriculum, please understand, I'm reading some of the experts, directly to you rather than claiming to be an expert myself, because it's tricky. We have to keep up on this. And, as the recruiter, I'm trying to give you the best of what we're presenting. And sometimes this is happening, daily. We're making these updates on a continual basis. So anybody have any questions, I'm happy to address them. Nothing yet. I've already disobeyed the rules of this meeting, by the way. It's coffee and Code Platoon. I don't even have any coffee. I feel like I'm committing a sacrilege right now, but
all right, Greg, how do you know that these are the AI skills employers want?
Great question. And the way that we answer that is by working with these employers. For example, we have some of our recent graduates took apprenticeship roles at companies like Accenture. I think that was the one that we have listed that is currently working on this in our strategy and our curriculum, is that we are working with these employers. We're not hoping that what we're doing is working. We're not simply throwing this out there in a sense of, giving our students skills and hoping that they do well, and then maybe checking in with them a couple of years later. In our efforts to secure roles for students, we're continually working with these organizations and these companies. Accenture is a great example because they took on several of our graduates in an apprenticeship role to do exactly this. And we're constantly getting feedback and updates with them to accommodate what they're doing and to make sure that what we're doing is actually functional in the job world. This isn't theory, this is immediately practical, immediately implementable, I guess, for a lack of a better term, in the industry that these students are going into. So this isn't something that we're guessing. This is something that we're relying on constant conversation. I wouldn't even say feedback, but constant conversation with employers that we partner with.
Awesome, thank you. Any questions? Oh, are those apprentices leading to full-time jobs?
I think they are in most cases. I don't know the exact breakdown on the numbers for that right now, because everything I've heard over the last couple of years is that nearly all of our apprenticeship roles end up in full-time job offers.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. Those who don't stay with the company, it's usually their decision rather than the company's decision not to keep them on full-time. They decide to go elsewhere. Right.
This isn't a case of, the apprenticeship role just stops and they're left hanging out to dry. I don't have the actual numbers on this, but that's something that we should probably track with career services. Where do our apprenticeship roles lead? No, everything I've heard over the last 4.5 years is that apprenticeship roles nearly always result in full-time job offers. I think it's very much the exception that they don't.
On that topic, how do we prepare students outside of the curriculum for these apprenticeships and job opportunities after graduation?
Well, I'd start by saying that we have an incredibly motivated career services team, a couple of individuals who are just fantastic to work with and whose hearts are absolutely, in the place of helping our students, veterans in general, but working with our students to do exactly that, to best prepare them. And the reason I say that is because this really does start at a personal level. It's not just, us feeding information to people. It's a team of people working with the individual students and making sure that they are understanding the steps, the career services path that we have laid out for them. It's an entire track that happens at the end of Code Platoon. Every graduate receives help from career services, and it really becomes a matter of how much help do you want, because these are motivated people who are willing to help you. And I can tell you from experience in talking with them, the people who end up not securing roles through career services are often the people who just drop off the map and stop working with career services. It's not that career services is not helping them. It's just that these folks disappear. And the reason I say this is because they're willing to help you at every level. They're not just working with employers to help secure these roles, to make sure that our partnerships are solid, but it goes to the personal level too. Are your interview skills on point? Is your resume prepared? It's every aspect of the job search that they're helping you with. It's not simply, well, we've got these roles that are going on at this company. No, we're going to make sure that you know how to interview. We're going to make sure that you're looking for the right roles that make sense with what your experience is. We're going to make sure that you're looking for the right culture fit. All of those things go into the career services team and how they approach this. It's a robust effort, and it's really quite impressive because at the end of the day, that's Code Platoon's mission. Code Platoon's mission is not just to make sure that you can write code, although that's the hard skill. Code Platoon's mission is to start your career. That really is where our ethos lies. Primarily, that's our goal, and that's how we measure success.
Yeah, thank you. I had a question just messaged to me on the chat. One of the things I am afraid of as I transition out of the military is translating my experience in the Army to the workplace. Can you speak a little on that?
Absolutely. First of all, just let me state up front that it's a valid concern. It's a valid, it's for somebody who got out in 2009, I can speak just on a personal level that yes, it's difficult. And I got out of the Army as well. It's difficult to translate the skills and to translate and say, this is what I did, and it was really valuable, and I did all these cool things, and employers look at it and go, I don't know what that means. That's really difficult. What I'll say first is that's one of the things that sets Code Platoon apart. That's all we work with. That the military community is our entire focus. And the reason I say this is that it ties back to what I was mentioning a moment ago about our career services team. That's who they're focused on. So their entire focus is the military demographic is not an afterthought. It's not a subset of the population of our school. It is the population of our school. So every student who they work with is somebody from the military, and they're working with them to make sure that the skills they have are translating into that interview and job search process. So they are the subject matter experts on exactly that as it relates to this job field. As far as I'm concerned, there aren't better people out there for that. Because of who we are and who we work with and what we do, our entire focus is on making sure that you are maximized. Your background, your skill set, everything is maximized. That said, this is a case-by-case basis, and I'm not going to say that generalities always work. I have an infantry and PSYOP background. That's really hard to translate into the civilian job market, whereas there are other skill sets like being a nurse or being a, more technical job fields. Those translate a little bit better. So I would have to see, on an individual case-by-case basis, how that works. But in general, our career services team is specialized in exactly that, taking military experience and making sure that that is translated into civilian speak in a way that these tech companies are more amicable towards. Question that just popped up. Does that mean it's okay to start with a blank slate because I've never done anything in computer science, but I'm interested in learning more, but I'm scared it will be too hard? It's a fair question. It is a hard skill. One of the things that I've liked about Code Platoon, being here for 4.5 years, one of the things that I appreciated is that we're not lying to anyone and telling you this is easy. And I think that this resonates with the military community. If we were to sit here and say anybody can do it, and it's just super easy and snap your fingers and you're a software engineer, that's a lie. That's not true. It takes some serious effort to learn these hard skills. That said, that's why it's in demand. And in this industry, what really matters is your actual ability to perform the task. The reason I say that is because in our application process, if someone looks at our application process, we have coding challenges to get into the program. We do that for a couple of reasons, one of which is that we want you to know up front what you're getting into, what you're learning. But two, we use a site like CoderByte because a lot of employers use that as well. They might send you to CoderByte as a first step in an interview process. We want you to be prepared for that, but note that that being part of the application process means that they value the skill to be able to do the task, not just a blurb on a resume that says, I graduated with a degree in computer science. I graduated from X university. They want you to do the skill. I can tell you, I know people who have done this for 20 years and they've gone into job interviews and the first thing they were presented with was a whiteboard and a magic marker and a coding problem. And they had to solve that coding problem on a whiteboard with a magic marker. In other words, the interviewer didn't care that they had 20 years of experience. They wanted to see them actually accomplish the task. So to answer that question, it doesn't, of course, experience matters, but learning the actual skill and starting to learn that skill is where this journey starts. It's not just getting a blurb on a resume. It's not just having a bullet that says, I graduated something. It's learning the skill. And the best way to start that is exactly that, to start. It's like learning a language. You know, you have to learn how to say, hello, how are you in that foreign language before you can ever start to learn more. And that's what we're here for. From the beginning part of this journey is learning the fundamental basics. And that starts out as simply as possible. And that way you can start building on that and building on that and building on it. It takes time. We're not going to say that it doesn't. We're saying we're here to help do that in the most efficient way possible, if that makes sense.
While we're on that topic, what are some resources available where somebody like this person could like dip their toes in the water, so to speak, and start trying to learn how to code themselves?
Great question. And another cool thing about Code Platoon is that we offer a great deal for free, absolutely free of charge. We have something called Intro to Coding, and that's something that you can start right now. You can go on our website under admissions prep, sign up for Intro to Coding, and that is a free introduction to JavaScript course that gets you started on the fundamentals down this path. You can start, again, right now. All you have to do is sign up and begin to explore whether or not this is the right path for you. And Intro to Coding solves a couple of problems in that light, because number one, it does help address that question that Kayla is posing here, which is this the right path for me? You know, is this what I want to be doing? Unlike a lot of other disciplines in this world, coding is one of those areas where you can start doing it right away. You can start to figure out whether or not this is right for you. There's a lot of jobs out there that you have to go through a lot of schooling before you'll ever answer that question. You're not going to be able to dip your toes in the world of being a doctor, for example. That's not something you can just kind of casually figure out. That it requires years and years of training. Coding is something you could start right now. And as you go through something like Intro to Coding, you can start playing with, you know, these JavaScript fundamentals and figure out, hey, is this something I actually enjoy doing, or at least I can do? I have a proclivity for doing. But it helps in a second way is that it also helps prepare you for our application. So it's giving you the fundamental skills while answering that same question. And I think it's fundamental to understand as well in that context. This is not hoops to jump through. Again, I use the language analogy. It's not a hoop to jump through. If you want to learn how to speak Spanish fluently, for example, it's not a hoop to jump through to learn how to say, hello, how are you? My name is. That's not a hoop. That's the fundamental building block of the language. And if you're not willing to do that, then it's not going to go any further. But if you learn that and you say, okay, cool, now I'm going to add the next step and then the next step. That's the base building block of learning how to be a software engineer, and you just keep building on it. Again, all of that can be done for free. The follow-up question to that, do you have any YouTube videos that I can watch? Not only do we have YouTube videos, yes, the short answer to that question is yes, we have hundreds of hours of free content on our YouTube channel, but we also have a YouTube series that is dedicated specifically to our Intro to Coding. We have an Intro to Coding JavaScript series, and it is from when that same class, the self-paced free class that I was just mentioning, that was led by an instructor in front of a class. And so there's a whole series of videos that will walk you through those fundamentals as an instructor would, just as if you were sitting in front of a class, meaning that there's a lot of students that were asking the same questions that any student joining would probably have as well. So it's an additional resource. Plus, we have a Slack channel that we can send you an invite for if you can join, and you can ask TAs questions about exactly that. So we have a lot of resources in addition to this free program. It's not just us casting you off onto your own and saying good luck. We have a lot of resources that will help you along this path. Let's see. The other thing I was worried about was time commitment. In the program, typically, how much time do students spend a week on coursework? Or are there different programs depending on how much time I could commit to this? The first question is a lot. A lot of time. We're here again, we're not going to lie to you and tell you that this does not require a lot of full commitment. It does. Once you're offered acceptance to the program, one of the first things that the director says on a welcome call is, are you prepared to give up most of your life for the next 3.5 months? Because it's intense. It is intense. There's a reason that a coding bootcamp can accomplish what a computer science degree accomplishes in several years, but do it in 3.5 months. So it is an intense program. It's a boot camp model. So everyone in the military background is familiar with this boot camp model. It's all day, every day. It's that kind of approach. That being said, to answer the follow-up, the different way of looking at this is that we do have multiple programs. So we have the immersive program, which is what I was just describing, is the all day, every day for 15 weeks. But we also have an evening and weekend program for those who do have a career. They're already in a job or they can't leave their job for whatever reason, and they want to learn new skills. They want to advance. They want to do more. And we have an evening and weekend program that currently it is a 28-week long program. It currently meets Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursday evenings. Is it 5 or 5:30 Central, Kayla? I believe it's 5:30 to 9:30 Central. On Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays.
I'm going to triple check so I don't spread misinformation by accident.
It's either 5 or 5:30 Central to 9 or 9:30 Central. And then 8 hours on Saturday, every Saturday. And that's for 28 weeks. So that
30.
enables 5:30. Okay. Thank you for checking. Sorry. I sometimes forget which one it is. 5:30. I get it wrong. My apologies. But at any rate, that enables people who have a job, don't want to leave their job, to still be able to do this program. A brief caveat to this and a follow-up, because it's a question we get asked a lot in this context, is I'm in the National Guard or I'm in the reserves. Can I still do this program? The short answer is yes, absolutely. Because we're serving the military community, we have a lot of students who are in exactly that position. They're in the Guard, the reserves. They still have to do their week, 1 weekend a month, something like that. We'll work with you to make sure that that is doable. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that that works. Where that becomes tricky, and I'll be upfront with this, is that I've had this question several times. People say, well, I've got my 2 weeks of annual training coming up and it falls right in the middle of the program. That's going to be really tough to do. That's going to be tough because you're missing 2 weeks of, let's say it's the 15-week program. 2 weeks out of 15 weeks at 10 to 12 hours a day is an enormous amount of time that you're falling behind on. That's not realistic. The 28-week might be a slightly different situation, and we can have a conversation if you have a specific situation about, specific concerns about that, and you have a different situation. Happy to have that conversation. But short answer is yes. If you're in the Guard, the reserves, we've had plenty of students go through with that. Just be aware that 2 weeks of annual training is a bit hard to accommodate. So we'll have to have a more detailed conversation.
Before we hit the next question, which is going to move us more towards VA benefits, it looks like, while we're on the subject of the different programs available, can you briefly talk about the differences between the in-person and remote attendance options for the immersive program?
Yes, good question. And so on that note, it's important to remember that everything at Code Platoon can be done remotely. So the question we often get is, can I do any of your programs remotely? The answer is, well, you can do all of our programs remotely, but there's only one of our programs that you can attend in person as well. And that is our immersive full stack program. But the quick note on this, it's the same program. So if you attend it remotely, attend it in person, you're attending the same program. The difference is where you're sitting. We have a class in Chicago. We have a classroom. It's in a WeWork facility, downtown Chicago. I realize that's for anybody familiar with Chicago. I didn't, for the first year or so I worked at Code Platoon, not having been from Chicago, I didn't realize what that actually means. Downtown is a big area, but it is downtown Chicago. So we have a great facility, a great classroom that it can accommodate. I think it's around 28 students, if I'm not mistaken, 25, something like that, students who can sit in person and attend the class. If you're attending remotely, you will be joining that same class. You'll be doing the same thing with the same instructors at the exact same time. It's not a different program. I'm an advocate of attending in person if you can, because I don't think there's any true substitute for attending in person. That said, our remote students have done every bit as good as our in-person students. This is a skill set that is very conducive to remote online environment because you're spending a lot of time immersed in a laptop or a PC of some kind. So it's very conducive to doing this remotely. But our evening and weekend programs are remote exclusive. There is no way to attend those in person, just FYI.
Thank you.
So the question that came up, I have about 11 months of GI Bill remaining. I'm not sure exactly how much. Is that enough to for attending Code Platoon? So the short answer is yes. But we're going to talk about exactly what we were just talking about a moment ago, which is in-person versus remote. The GI Bill, as it currently stands with regards to schools like ours, is that you have to attend in person. That's due to the way that VA funding and authorization for the GI Bill works. I can go into detail if anyone wants on that, but it's a long, boring discussion about authorization that probably most people don't care. Bottom line is that for coding boot camps like ours, you can only use the GI Bill in person. So with that being said, the GI Bill does not work on semesters like a lot of people believe that it does. A lot of people have the impression that if I go to a semester of college that I use 4 months of GI Bill. Well, that's true, but the VA is actually calculating weekly class hours. They're not calculating months. They're not calculating semesters. So in the case of a organization or a school like Code Platoon, a program like ours, when you're talking about 10 to 12-hour days, 5 days a week for 15 weeks, it is considerably more than just the 3.5 months. Right now, as I understand it, it stands at around 9 months of GI Bill time that it will take. Is that worth it? I think it's still worth it. I think it's still worth it to use the GI Bill if you're attending in person, collecting that living stipend. So yes, 11 months would be enough time, but that's something that we work with you as well. And that's something that, let's say you had just a month shy and it didn't cover all of the time at Code Platoon. We're going to work with you to make sure that this is doable. That's a bottom line at Code Platoon, is that we make it affordable for anyone and everyone who comes to us. So don't, if you're just shy of the amount of time you would need, don't let that be a deterrent. At least have a conversation with myself or Tish, our enrollment coordinator, who can explain those benefits a little bit better, and we can try to maximize those as well.
While we're on the topic of VA benefits, what besides the GI Bill is available for people to use?
Right now, the alternative, I shouldn't say alternative, it's a different method from the VA, something called VR&E. It used to be called Voc Rehab. It is specifically designed for disabled vets, but the disability rating that you are required to have by VA standards is actually quite low. Someone quoted recently, I think they said it was only 10%, which I was shocked by. I thought it was 20 or higher, but someone recently told me it was 10. I might have to do some research. At any rate, it's lower than a lot of people would think. I know a lot of people get out, they hear about VR&E and they dismiss it because they think, well, I'm not 100% disabled, so that doesn't apply to me. The threshold for using this is much lower. At any rate, VR&E is what the best way to explain it is how it actually functions. You get out of the military, you have a disability rating, and you say, I want to use VR&E. You apply on the VA's website, you get assigned a counselor, and you sit down with a counselor to determine what your path forward is. Someone just shared you have a 20% or higher pre-discharge disability rating. Okay, so it is 20%. Yeah, I thought 10 seemed a little bit low, but at any rate, So you sit down with a counselor and you work with that counselor to figure out a path forward and whatever that means for you. And in this case, if you found out about Code Platoon, you say, well, I want to use VR&E for Code Platoon. Great. You bring that information to that counselor. And if need be, we become your advocate. And I have talked to VR&E counselors in the past, and I will advocate for you to come to Code Platoon and what our stats are, because that's the kind of thing that VR&E counselors want to know. You know, if we're investing in you, what does this look like? We're happy to be that advocate. Once they sign off on it, once they authorize that, what they do is that they pay your tuition fully, and then they give you a living stipend. Also, they're very commonly will buy you a laptop because that's a tool necessary to attend a program like ours. It's a fantastic way of funding this program. The only downside to VR&E, and I put it up front just so people know what they're getting into, is that you have to go through that process of meeting with a counselor. That can be more difficult than it sounds. And I don't want to discourage anyone, but I want people to go in with realistic expectations. If you submit to the VA that I want to meet with a VR&E counselor, they might schedule a meeting with one a week from now, or it might be 2 months from now. It depends on your area. It depends on how many VR&E counselors there are. There are a shortage of VR&E counselors right now. So that has been a problem in certain areas, but not a problem in others. So just go into it with realistic expectations and know that you do have to go through. It's unlike the GI Bill where it's kind of an automatic benefit. You do have to go through that process of meeting with a counselor, making your case and saying, this is what I want to do, and having them say yes or no to that process. On that note, for the record, every VR&E counselor we've worked with has said yes. I have yet to meet the counselor who has looked at what we've done and said, no, I'm not going to fund that. The only snag in that process is the individual. Whether or not they get accepted and whether or not they push forward with Code Platoon is, of course, a question mark. But I've not even encountered a counselor who looked at what we did and said, no, we're not signing off on this, because we are a VA authorized institution. So it's a great option if you want to go through that process.
Sweet. And Greg, I want to touch on basically what you were saying too. I reached out to VR&E to at least apply for it back in May when we did the quick pass to get into, I forget the cohort that was going on at that time that I didn't end up getting into, but I finally just had a meeting with a counselor. I got accepted. So now I guess the counselor, it sounds like he's trying to push a little bit more school heavy to finish my degree. And from what you just said, I might need a little assistance there. Sure. But also the second step for VR&E is to basically interview 3 people within the career field. So I wanted to come here today and ask if we have any graduates that you still frequently talk to that could potentially interview, and then see kind of like lean towards Code Platoon and ask them like how it benefited them, what do they recommend or anything of the sorts. Because I'm on the process of actually putting into what's my next step with VR&E. So I'm accepted. I got the benefits. Now it's just I have to do this little research thing on the career field that I wanted to go to, which is obviously this.
Sure. Oh, and that's fantastic. And that's good to know. So what I'm going to try to do, here's my recommendation. Right now, you can do it right now. Email me to remind me of this. And I'm going to try and do one better. I'm not just going to put you in touch with some graduates. I want to try to find VR&E graduates specifically. Okay. And that way you can have that, to bring to your counselor and say, listen, not only do they have graduates, they have VR&E graduates who have gone through this program. Here's what they're doing now. Okay. But yes, in fact, we have graduates who even work on staff who could talk to you, I think probably sooner rather than later, but I'll put that out to the alumni and try to find hopefully some VR&E specific graduates who you can speak with to be an advocate for exactly that. But beyond that, I encourage you to email me, and that way Tish and I can either one of us or both can speak with your counselor or share at least an email, send an email introducing ourselves and saying, hey, whatever you need to know, we're happy to share, because we have the numbers to back this up, what we do. there's plenty of success stories that we can use to demonstrate that it's a value added, endeavor. So yeah, I'm happy to do exactly that. So my recommendation is just email me and remind me of that.
Okay.
And that way I won't, once I get off of this, what we're doing here, that I won't forget to help you out with exactly that.
I completely get it. So that's why I wanted to come today too, was because my counselor, he used the analogy because I guess he had an applicant or somebody using VR&E before go through a certification before finishing out school. He said, I guess that person didn't have much success. I don't know which program they used. But so use the analogy, it's like putting the cart before the horse. And I kind of looked at him and was like, all right. And everything I've experienced here with Code Platoon, I mean, speaking to companies or firms on what they need with entry-level skills and aligning the curriculum with just that. Obviously it's a piece to many and piece to me as well. So that's why I'm back here trying to get back in. So, so yeah, I'll follow up with you. I'll send you that email, and then I guess we could hopefully move forward with that. And maybe you can help me touch base, some people in this realm, because honestly, I can't really think besides I have a few buddies in IT work off the top of my head. So maybe I'll have to connect with some other maybe networks within my area that could potentially help me out too.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm happy to help. That's exactly because we've actually made an effort over the last several months to increase the number of VR&E students we have, because it's a great option. It's a fantastic option for you and for us, right? Because it cuts away so much, it takes care of the tuition. It helps you out with the living stipend. It's a direct path to success, really. And I think it makes more sense from a VR&E perspective than, just going to 4 years of college. It's like, yeah, things can vastly change in the next 3.5 to 4 years, right?
Definitely. Yep.
So yeah, I'm happy to be an advocate for you on that realm. And I can connect you with several people. After this, I want to figure out who the best people are that would help you out with that, if that makes sense. Because I have a ton of people who would be willing to talk to you, but then, the ideal is who's better to speak to this than others. So I want to make sure we get the right people connected with you.
Awesome. Sweet. Appreciate it, Greg.
No problem.
Did you have any other questions while you're here?
I guess I got the email. So the next deadline for applications is August 4th, correct?
Yes.
Is that I forget which
that's for
cohort that
the
was for,
immersive Yankee platoon. We do have
cool.
July 29th for the golf evening and weekend platoon for anyone here who may have been considering the evening and weekend.
Okay.
Yes.
And
which, for those of you who are new to this, between now and August 4th, to answer preempt a question that is very common, yes, this is enough time to prepare for that. You can get into intro to coding now and figure out for sure whether or not it's right for you, like we mentioned at the beginning. But yes, between now and August 4th, if you start intro to coding and start digging in, you can do it by August 4th for sure.
We also will be launching another quick pass for Yankee Platoon that will happen in July. We haven't made the formal announcement yet, but it will be happening, and you can see that very soon.
Okay, cool. I was just about to ask that too.
Awesome.
And Ron, too, if you do get accepted prior to, if you finish your application, you get accepted prior to that, it doesn't have to just be quick pass. Like, we have a foundations of program. There's other things that you can do to engage and learn to lead up to the program. So quick pass is not the only option. So the question just popped up, what is quick pass? And that's good. That's a great question that, we should cover, because we just kind of jumped right into that. Quick pass is another method basically of getting accepted to Code Platoon. As I mentioned earlier, in our application process, you have some coding challenges. And you have to complete those coding challenges at a certain level to be able to join a cohort. Quick Pass is a way of addressing those coding challenges, but from an instructor-led perspective. So you're actually joining a class that is led by an instructor who is helping you on a more scheduled basis to achieve that same goal. So in the traditional model, what we've done is we've given people intro to coding, we've given them these video resources, and we've said, here are the coding challenges, go for it. And a lot of people express the desire to have an instructor walk them through this because they learned better with an instructor rather than on their own. Fair point. So Code Platoon answered that need and desire with QuickPass. It's a class that is designed basically to help you get accepted. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a program that comes right before the actual cohort starts, kind of after the application. It also helps for people who came to us late. So if you came to me on, the last week of July, the first day of August, and said, there's no way I can make the deadline, this is what QuickPass is for. We're trying to make an alternate route into Code Platoon to make it as accessible as possible. And that way it maximizes your opportunity to get in the program. To add on to that, exactly what I was saying a minute ago, it's not the only means of learning after the application deadline. For those who've been accepted early, we do have other things like our Foundations of Programming class that is designed to help prepare you. We do have some people, especially people who are getting out of the military and they're planning way in advance. We sometimes have people who get accepted to a cohort months and months in advance, like 6-8 months in advance. We don't want those skills to perish in that time. So we have plenty of things to keep people engaged between when they're accepted and when the cohort actually begins. So QuickPass is not the only thing that we're doing in that lead up to the program, but it is, again, it's an alternate route. It's a way to make Code Platoon more accessible and to maximize your learning potential between applying and the start of the cohort.
Awesome. To back up a little so we don't accidentally skip Nicholas's question, what's the deadline for applying? If I miss the window, when will be the next time I can apply for the program?
So the first answer to that question is what we just covered, which is QuickPass. And that is a way, if you did miss that deadline, the QuickPass is a way to kind of deal with that and still get into that same cohort. That said, if you miss QuickPass, you miss the deadline and you miss QuickPass, the next deadline that is coming up will be, for whatever next cohort. Our cohorts, we run 3 immersive full stack cohorts per year. They're always going to fall pretty close in times and dates because you can only run 3 15-week cohorts so many ways. They're always going to fall around the same time. We nearly always start a cohort the first week of October for reasons that everyone in the military understands, has to do with the fiscal year, government funding, etc. But all the other cohorts kind of fall in similar timeframes. So if you miss any particular deadline, you're going to wait about 3 months and then you're going to have another cycle coming around. Or if you want to look at the evening and weekend program, that's another option as well. But a caveat to this, if you're looking at future cohorts and you say to yourself, there's no, it doesn't matter when the deadline for, as Kayla just mentioned, Yankee Platoon, the deadline for that is August 4. If you say right now, I'm not worried about that one anyway, I can't go until 2025, you can still apply. You can apply right now to our Zulu platoon or our, wait for it, Avenger platoon. I think this is the first public webinar mentioning of Avenger platoon. If you want to apply to those right now, you can do that. You can absolutely apply early. We encourage people to apply early. I like it when people are planning way ahead because it opens up a lot of options. And you do not have to wait until that application deadline to find out if you're accepted. We typically have about a 72-hour turnaround on applications, whether or not people are accepted. So yeah, if you're looking to apply now to something way in the future, go for it. Don't wait, start now, because it opens up a lot of options. We can always change what cohort you're applying to if you need be in the future. So
one additional point to make here is if you started an application and for whatever reason weren't able to complete it in time, you do not have to start all the way from zero again to continue to the next cohort. That application can roll over and you can work on finishing your last couple coding challenges or your essays and video and apply that to the future cohort as well. We won't make you start all the way back from scratch.
Great point. Thank you for bringing that up because yes, I have a lot of people ask, maybe they started to apply to Whiskey Platoon and they're worried because it says Whiskey Platoon on their application, but now they want to do Zulu Platoon. Just keep going. Just keep pushing forward with it. We'll adjust that when need be. We're not super concerned about that at this stage of the game. Once you submit the full application, we'll have a conversation about making sure everything's right. And yeah, don't let that be a deterrent, like Kayla said.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Real quick, you mentioned the foundations. Is that only after you've been accepted then?
Foundations of programming is yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is and there again, traditionally when Code Platoon started, they always had pre-work that had to be done prior to the start of the program to get everybody up to speed because we want to maximize the cohort time. Foundations of programming was basically making that pre-work official and having an instructor lead it.
Okay.
So it's the same thing that all Code Platoon students have done for years and years. It's just that we wanted to make that, and part of the reason for that was SkillBridge students. We wanted SkillBridge students to have something official to submit to their command that said, hey, I have an actual, I can block out this time. Because SkillBridge students sometimes have 180 days, but our program is only 15 weeks. So we wanted to maximize that time. And so Foundations of Programming became an official way of doing that.
Okay.
That all that material that you're covering, everyone does it. And, it's really just getting everybody on the same page and getting those fundamentals as sound as possible. To put it in a military context, we're all hitting boot camp on day one. How in shape are you? Right? How much have you been running and how many push-ups have you been doing and who's been helping you do push-ups? You know what I mean? Who's been pushing you on that 5-mile run? Are you just pushing yourself? That's just, the analogy that I use. So yeah, but Foundations of Programming is technically for accepted students.
Okay, thank you.
That's all the questions I have, but if I have any more questions after this meeting, is reaching out to Greg by email the best method for me to reach out? Yes. Kayla shared it once already in the comments here, greg@codeplatoon.org. That's what I do. I'm here to answer questions for you, to be a resource for you. If you want to have one-on-one questions with me, please reach out. Again, Ron, please reach out to me and remind me about this VR&E stuff because we like VR&E and we want them to like us more. So I'm happy to be a very, very solid advocate for you on that. But yeah, any questions anybody has, and if you want to set up a one-on-one call with me, email me. We'll have more conversations about this. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do. So please don't hesitate to ask me one-on-one questions. And sometimes we encounter, I offer this. Occasionally we'll have questions where a unique situation presents itself and, people have to describe this in a one-on-one fashion that makes sense. In fact, I think he just graduated. We had a guy come from, he was a Navy SEAL. He was part of the command element and he was using these different forms of funding. And it was just this weird situation, but he was a go-getter and he was motivated. And it took us months to figure out how to get him into the program, not because he didn't have the ability, but because his command was reluctant and there was all these different issues. And so it was just months and months of conversations. That's not the norm. Most people don't have atypical scenarios that they have to deal with, but it does happen. So if you have a unique situation, don't hesitate to email me and we'll have a conversation about it. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help make sure that this is accessible and make sure that you have a path into Code Platoon.
So
I can't make you learn coding.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, I can't make you learn coding, but I can make it accessible if you want to.
So in our last 10 minutes, unless anyone else has any questions, in which case feel free to just jump right in. We haven't talked about scholarships yet this time, Greg, and I think it would be very nice to bring up the different scholarship options available and how to check your eligibility for it in advance, which is something new that we offer.
That's a great point. I'll give you might be a better authority on the checking the eligibility of scholarships. I'll start off by giving a quick overview. Earlier we talked about VA benefits and different VA benefits that exist. But for some, VA benefits aren't an option. For whatever reason, they're not an option. Or maybe the case is that you don't want to use your VA benefits. That's perfectly fine too. We do have scholarships. As mentioned earlier, Code Platoon from its inception has made its mission to make sure this training is affordable to everyone. I don't think I know of anyone who's ever not attended Code Platoon because of the tuition. I've never seen the person who said, well, no, I can't because, I can't do the tuition. We work with everybody we can to make sure that this is doable. And the main way we do that is through our scholarships. A lot of these scholarships that we offer are through Code Platoon. And we have scholarships that cover every demographic that comes to Code Platoon. The reason I say that is because I think we have a scholarship that actually says veteran scholarship or something like that. Well, everybody who comes to Code Platoon is a veteran or a military spouse. And guess what? We have military spouse scholarships as well. We have several, I don't know if you want to share. There we go. Kayla beat me to it. The scholarships page, that'll give you an indication of what scholarships we have available. These scholarships typically cover between 80 and 100% of the tuition. 80 to 100%. It's a massive amount. We've handed out, I don't even know what the number is up to right now. I remember them quoting it at Celebrate last year, and it was a lot in scholarships over the years to make sure that this is affordable training. The way I put it is this. Let's say, because again, these scholarships range from 80 to 100%. Let's say you qualify for an 80% scholarship. You don't qualify for the 100% scholarship. Okay, 80%. That means the remaining 20% of $19,000 comes to you. But in the event that that happens, that's not something you have to pay up front. That's not even something, as I have understood it, traditionally we require at any specific point. You're not going to graduate unless I know for a fact that we work with people. We set up payment plans. We make sure that this is affordable to you, the individual student. So our scholarships are quite extensive. They're very generous, and they help, for anyone who does not have access to VA benefits. I think it's an amazing opportunity. You can check your own eligibility briefly. I think it's on that page, right, Kayla?
It is linked on that page, yes.
Okay.
And for people listening later who are not seeing the chat, that is codeplatoon.org/scholarships.
Codeplatoon.org/scholarships. Go check out what we have, and then follow the link to check your eligibility.
And it's a really simple form, and we don't demand any incredibly personal information on that. So I think it's definitely worth taking a couple minutes to submit that form just to get that peace of mind. Even if you are planning to use GI Bill or VR&E and something, just knowing that's in your back pocket can be really nice, ease some stress there.
Absolutely. It's a great point. And this is something new that we just added because traditionally we don't award scholarships until someone's accepted. And the reason for that is because if everyone who inquired about a scholarship were to be handed a scholarship, that would be a chaotic event. We wait till people who are actually accepted or offered acceptance before we award the scholarship. But we added this to make sure that people are aware that they are eligible and what they're eligible for, because there was a big question mark of, do I go through all this work to get accepted without even knowing whether or not I qualify? Well, bottom line is you most likely yes. But we offered this as a way to kind of address that. And like Kayla said, assuage some of that stress and say, oh, I've got this. This is available to me. So please check out our scholarships. If VA options are not available to you, please check that out and know that we're in the business of making sure you get this training. That's what we want, is for people to have access to this training. We're not in the business of throwing up barriers. We want to make it accessible. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. We're about out of time. Any final questions? Or Greg, is there anything else we should discuss that we have not yet?
Oh boy, I think we've covered a lot. I think the big thing for everybody is, check out the two things I would recommend to follow up on what we've covered so far. Check out our intro to coding. Start at intro to coding, go sign up, start doing it. The first the first step on any journey, you know, it's one step. And that's the one step to learning how to be a software engineer, is just to start learning a basic language like JavaScript. We've made that accessible and free. So dig in, start on JavaScript. The second resource that I highly recommend people watch is our graduation videos on YouTube. Again, look up Code Platoon Whiskey graduation. And the reason I say that is because it will give you great insight into what you're working towards. And a lot of people, I think at this stage of the game, they're asking, what am I even doing? What does this teach me to do? And our graduation videos are not us, you know, congratulating people and handing them diplomas. It's our students debuting their final projects. And that will give you an idea of what you're working towards and how much you can learn in a short period of time. I think it's quite impressive. Every time I watch one, I'm impressed at how much people have learned in a matter of going from their application to graduation. In that span of time is just absolutely incredible. So I encourage everyone to check that out. But otherwise, I think that we've covered just about everything. My kids remind me that it's June 14 and it's Inside Out 2 day. So I don't know if that's relevant, but if anybody wants to see Inside Out 2, that came out today. My kids bug me about it all the time, so I think it's relevant.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. And thank you to everyone who is here and asked some really great questions. Once again, if you have any more questions later, first of all, we'll do another one in 2 weeks at the same Zoom link here. Second of all, email Greg at codeplatoon.org, and he would be happy to answer any questions you have one-on-one.
Yes, indeed. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Kayla.